Hello, and welcome back to Time Across the Solar System, the little show where we look at the biggest news in space and ask one funny question about all of it. How does time work up there? I'm Tess, and if you have ever wondered why a day on one planet can be longer than a whole year on another, then buckle up, because you are exactly my kind of person. This is our weekend catch-up, and it has been a very busy week in space. We have astronauts getting ready to fly, we have brand new inventions, we have rockets booked years into the future, we have the moon, and right at the end we have a photo that lets us look billions of years back in time. 10 stories, one big idea. Ready? Let's go. Story 1. A very busy mission. Our first story comes from space.com. A company called SpaceX is getting ready to launch 4 astronauts up to the International Space Station on September 12. The astronauts called it a very busy mission, and I love that, because being an astronaut is basically the busiest job in the whole solar system. So here is the time part. The space station is not sitting still. It zooms around the Earth once every 90 minutes. 90 minutes, that is shorter than some school mornings. Because it moves so fast, the astronauts on board see the sun come up 16 times every single day, and they see it set 16 times too. Imagine having 16 sunrises before dinner. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. A day is really just one spin, or one lap. On Earth, one day is one spin of our planet, but up on the station, a lap around the Earth only takes an hour and a half. So if you lived up there, you could count 16 space sunrises in the time it takes our planet to make just one. Same Sunday, different clock. Story 2. 18 Wild New Ideas. Next up, NASA is helping to pay for 18 brand new invention ideas for exploring space in the future. These are the wild ones, the dreamy ones, ideas that sound like science fiction today but might be real when you grow up. Now, why does that matter for our time question? Because big space inventions take a long time to grow up. A brilliant idea today might take 10, 20, even 30 years before it actually flies. The telescopes and rockets that scientists use right now were dreamed up when your parents were kids. So the people planting these idea seeds today are really giving a gift to the future you. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Ask yourself this: what is one space invention you wish existed? A robot that maps a comet? A suit that lets you nap on the moon? Write it down and keep it. Real scientists start in exactly the same place, with a wish and a piece of paper. Story 3. Booked all the way to 2029. Here is a fun one about how busy the launch pads have become. SpaceX has just become a company that people can buy a little piece of on the stock market, and it is busier than ever. Its Falcon 9 rocket is so popular that its calendar is filling up all the way to the year 2029. That is not a spelling mistake. Companies and scientists are booking their rocket rides years and years in advance. And that, my friends, is a perfect space-time lesson. In space, you cannot just leave whenever you feel like it. The planets are always moving, so there are special moments, called windows, when the trip is quickest and uses the least fuel. To catch the best window, you have to plan far ahead. To reach Mars, for example, the good windows only come around about once every 26 months. Miss it, and you wait more than 2 years for the next one. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Space travel is a bit like catching a bus that only comes once in a very long while. You do not run for it at the last second. You check the timetable and you plan ahead. The sky has a timetable too. Story 4. Building a base on the moon. Story 4. NASA and a company called Northrop Grumman are taking pieces they built for a moon space station and reusing them to test out a future moon base. A base on the moon for people to live in. Let's zoom out and think about distance and time. The moon is about 384,000 kilometers away. That sounds impossibly far, and it is far, but here is the amazing part. A radio message, traveling at the speed of light, gets there in just over 1 second. So if you called a friend on the moon, you would say hello, and about a second later they would hear it, and about a second after that you would hear them answer. A tiny little delay, like a hiccup in the conversation. Actually getting a spacecraft there, though, takes about 3 days. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. The moon is close enough to almost chat with in real time, but still 3 days away by rocket. Space is full of surprises like that, where near and far depend on whether you are sending light or sending people. Story 5. The Launch Schedule. Story 5 is a quick one from the Space Coast in Florida, which is one of the busiest launch spots on the whole planet. They keep a launch schedule, which is just a fancy word for a calendar of rockets. I bring this up because a calendar is a time machine you use every day. Grown-ups on the Space Coast look weeks ahead to see which rockets go up and when. And weather matters too, because you cannot launch into a big storm, so sometimes a launch slides to the next day, or the next. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Try being a launch planner at home this weekend. Look at the real weather forecast, then pick the best day for something fun, like flying a kite or spotting the moon. You just did what rocket teams do. You read the sky and planned around it. Story 6. Watching a crash on the moon. Ooh, Story 6 is dramatic. NASA is going to try to watch a piece of an old rocket crash into the moon. Don't worry, the moon is tough, and scientists actually get very excited about little crashes like this, because the splash of dust it kicks up tells them what the moon is made of. Here is the time twist. Because the moon is so far away, everything there happens on a delay for us. The light from that little crash still takes just over a second to reach our telescopes. So, in a funny way, by the time we see the bump, it has already happened. We are always watching the moon's past, just by a heartbeat. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Whenever you look at the moon, you are seeing it as it was about 1 second ago, because that is how long its light took to reach your eyes. Looking up is a tiny bit like looking back in time. Hold on to that idea, because our last story takes it to the extreme. Story 7. September is almost here. Story 7. NASA is looking at a September date for a mission called Crew 13, sending more astronauts to the space station. This connects right back to our very first story, because getting people to space is a team effort that happens again and again, all year long. And remember our fast little station? It is racing around the Earth at about 28,000 kilometers per hour. That is so fast that in the time it takes you to eat breakfast, it has already crossed an entire ocean. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Speed and time are best friends. The faster you go, the less time a journey takes. The station is the fastest ride humans have, and that is exactly why it can circle our whole planet before you finish your cereal. Story 8. 6.5 hours outside. Story 8 comes from BBC Science, and it is one of the bravest things a person can do. 2 NASA astronauts went on a spacewalk outside the space station, and they were out there for 6.5 hours. 6.5 hours, floating in a spacesuit, fixing things, with nothing below their feet but the whole Earth. Let's turn that into a space clock. Remember, the station laps the Earth every 90 minutes. So during one 6.5-hour spacewalk, those astronauts zoomed all the way around our planet about 4 times. 4 laps of Earth in a single afternoon of work. They watched the sun rise and set several times without ever going indoors. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Next time you have a 6-hour day, at school, or on a car trip, remember that up on the station, that same 6 hours is 4 whole trips around the world. Same hours, wildly different view. Story 9. A Home for Space History. Story 9 is a gentle one. Over at the New Mexico Museum of Space History, they are welcoming their director for a special day. And it got me thinking about what a space museum really is. It is a place that keeps time. It holds onto the rockets, the suits, and the stories from all the space adventures that came before, so that you can walk in and travel back through them. Every astronaut flying today is standing on the shoulders of people who flew 50 and 60 years ago. Museums make sure we never forget them. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Make your own mini museum this weekend. Find 3 objects that tell the story of something you did and line them up in order oldest to newest. Congratulations, you are now a keeper of history, just like a real museum. Story 10. Looking billions of years into the past. And now, my favorite. Story 10 is the astronomy picture of the day, and it comes from a brand new giant telescope. It is called Rubin's Cosmos Field, and it is a photo absolutely stuffed with galaxies. Not stars, galaxies. Each one is a whole city of billions of stars. Now, remember what we learned from the moon? That its light takes about a second to reach us, so we always see it a heartbeat in the past. Well, get ready, because these galaxies are so unbelievably far away that their light has been traveling toward us for billions of years. Billions. That means when scientists look at this picture, they are not seeing those galaxies as they are today. They are seeing them as they were long, long before there was an Earth, before there was a sun, before there was anyone at all to look up. A telescope, it turns out, is a real time machine. The farther out it looks, the farther back in time it sees. Tess's takeaway for the classroom. Tonight, if the sky is clear, find one star and give it a wave. The light hitting your eyes left that star years ago, sometimes many years ago. You are not seeing it as it is now. You are seeing it as it was. Every time you look up, you are peeking into the past. So there we are. 10 stories and one big idea holding them all together. Time and space is not one single thing. It is 16 sunrises a day on the station. It is a once every 26 months window to Mars. It is a 1-second hello to the moon. And it is a billion-year-old photo of galaxies far, far away. Here is your big time traveler challenge until next week. Pick just one story from today and tell someone in your family about it at dinner. Teaching it is the best way to keep it. Thank you so much for spending part of your weekend with me. I'm Tess. This has been Time Across the Solar System, and I will see you next Friday with a fresh batch of space news and the same wonderful question. How does time work up there? Until then, keep looking up. Bye for now.